Okay, Tina, something you and I both have in common, along with most of the people in this office, is that we are rom-com girly tragics.
Yeah.
But I feel more so than just watching rom-coms, we like live our lives as rom-com characters.
I think you certainly do. I think you live your life with like the joie de vivre of a rom-com lead.
I think you do too. We're just in different kind of
We're
rom-coms.
in different rom-coms.
One's more of a rom, one's more of a com. I don't want to say which.
One of us has a better outlook on love. Yeah, let's say that.
Write in the comments who you think. But it's an important milestone in the rom-com community that's nearly upon us because it's been 25 years since the first Bridget Jones movie came out. Well, almost. 13th of April 2001 was when the first movie came out.
And I can't believe it because as you said before, I'm simply Gen Z. So like that can't be true factually.
Walking that fine line between Gen Z and millennial. Do you remember your first time watching the movie?
I am 90% sure I do. I think it was with my cousins.
Okay.
And I watched a lot of things way too young. Not that you can be too young for Bridget Jones, but there would always be like something I didn't understand about a rom-com until later. So I think I was quite young and I remember like being confused because she ran outside in her leopard print underpants and I was like, is she going to buy undies? And my mom was like, no, she's gone to find the guy, crazy. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, why?
Do you remember yours?
Well, I remember the feeling that I had when I watched it, which was, I don't want this woman's life. Which is, I know, which looking back on it, I'm like, look, she got into a very successful career. She lived alone in London. She had good friends, but I was just like, I don't know, it seems sad, which I think a lot of people felt at the time because of how we were geared to perceive
I watched
these
that
things.
and I was like inspired to live a life.
Okay, well, that's what I should have taken away from it. But I think, they made it seem like she was never going to find love and that was like her main thing.
Yeah.
They also made it seem like she was really overweight when she actually was not.
No.
Also, she was very open about her struggles and I think for that time that was very jarring.
Well, she was the archetype of like the frazzled English woman, which like makes me giggle at the moment when you see girls on Instagram doing aesthetic roundups and they're like, how to be a frazzled English woman. And I'm like, if you need a guide, you're simply not one. I'm sorry to say.
Well, like that has become the goal.
Like that is actually like who we should be is Bridget Jones. But you're right. At the time, she was a mess.
Yes.
And I mean, she still is. You watch the movie and you're like, this woman is a bloody mess.
Oh, it's a stressful
but
watch.
a successful mess nonetheless.
Exactly. Do you have a favorite Bridget Jones moment?
Isn't it terrible about Chechnya? That's my favorite moment.
That's a great moment.
I did talk about that with Nicola Coughlan in Bridgerton interviews because I was like, were you inspired by Bridget Jones's like cringiness and just craziness in like one of the scenes in Bridgerton? And she was like, yes. She was like, yes, I feel very Bridget Jones adjacent. That's my favorite line. I think it's so stupid and so ridiculous. Like I actually have to close my eyes or like cover my eyes or like pace around the living room because I cannot watch the book launch whole segment. But I do love that line.
That one that you were talking about, it does hit so close to home for anyone who's been in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I seem kind of important.
Especially when you go to like a lot of media events. Like when I was young and I was first going to media events and I would go by myself, my sister always would be like, just go up to someone and say, isn't it terrible about Chechnya? And I was like, but if they don't get it, it's even worse.
No, at a media event, I think that would go down well.
Yeah,
They'd be like,
maybe.
she's so funny.
We'll give it a crack one day. Anyway, what's your favorite? Is it that scene?
Well, I really like the line. I say this to myself all the time, or at least I have, especially throughout my early 20s. Note to self, stop obsessing about men, start obsessing about career. Oh, who am I kidding? I love that line.
That is a fantastic line.
It's a good little mantra.
We could talk for days, but I also just have to shout out the like rowing scene on the lake when Hugh Grant does his poem and then he falls in the water and he's the hottest anyone's ever been and he emerges from the water and he's got like a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. There's just beautiful cinema.
He really is the hottest man that's ever been. I have to say, the whole I like you very much just as you are scene, I take issue with it because I know
wrong, but carry on.
I know it's meant to be this beautiful moment, but it's always irked me how he's saying it like it's this huge declaration and like, no, stop. Believe it or not, I like you very much just as you are, as if it's like, it's unfathomable. I know, I just do.
But I kind of like that because obviously Bridget Jones is like a very, very loose Pride and Prejudice adaptation.
Yes.
And it's like, that's their modern-ish version of the like monologue about how like her inferior circumstances and all of this stuff. And so like in Bridget Jones, it's like, I like you just as you are. And it's actually romantic versus like Pride and Prejudice where it's the worst thing anyone's ever said to somebody.
In 2026, it would be like, you're hot. Or something. I don't know. It'd be some really even more condensed
It'd be
version.
something terrible. I like you just as you are.
I mean, it is cute.
But
It
I
rolls
do
off the
like
tongue.
even more when her friends start mocking her for it.
Yes, because I feel like that is an actual thing that would definitely happen if it happened to you in real life.
Oh, 100%.
Watching it now, I mean, certain scenes just seem so dated. Even though it was 25 years ago, it feels almost more when you watch it back now. I mean, Mark Darcy, the man she literally falls in love with, calls her a verbally incontinent spinster. That always just gets me when you that line. When you watch it back, you're like, ooh.
But also like hard relate.
Yeah.
As someone with verbal incontinence, I do understand. And I have
You can
always
say it about yourself.
But I'd also I think that's the only film or place I've ever heard that phrase used. And I'm like, what a perfect phrase. And also technically probably now I am a spinster because I'm in my 30s. So like I stand by that line and I accept it and allow it. But I get what you're saying.
We're really confusing the spillers with your age in this episode. But like she's Gen Z. She's in her 30s.
I'm
You'll never
definitely
know.
not Gen Z.
There's also just when you watch it back, the blatant workplace sexual harassment
Yeah, that's
stuff.
not good.
Just when you're watching it and he's like, no one ever gets sacked for shagging your boss. I'm like,
Perhaps they should.
perhaps they should. But just also when you watch it and you're like, wow, the whole plot really is finding a man, but I love it.
Like, I do love it. That's what we're watching a rom-com for. But also, like, I think the things that people obviously, like, take umbrage with is a lot to do with, like, the views on her weight and how other people talk about her in the film. It's kind of like in Love Actually when they're talking about, like, again, Hugh Grant. Okay, he is the cause of all of this. But in Love Actually, Martine McCutcheon's when she's playing, like, the assistant to the Prime Minister and everyone's kind of like, oh, the girl with the big thighs. And you're like, oh, she's so chunky. And it's like, what were we doing
I
with
know,
British
also-
films in the early 2000s?
Also wouldn't have thought that if they didn't say that. And I didn't think it anyway, but I'm like, oh.
And also, like, it's not like I didn't think it in, like, hindsight. I didn't think it at the time either, but I understand the context and the time period in which these films were made. These women were considered to be like, oh my gosh, they're so big on our screens, which is absolutely absurd. And I like that people are now calling out the absurdity of that.
It's quite well known that Renee Zellweger gained weight for the role, and she also went very method in other ways to prepare for Bridget Jones. So she became a temporary publishing assistant for 3 weeks because she really wanted to immerse herself in Bridget's life. And I was like, this is not a role I would have thought you'd have to go that method for.
But also, like, surely people recognized her. Like, she wasn't a nobody at that point in time.
Well, she had an alias, but I mean, I think
Like,
they
what
would
did
have
she do? Put
recognised
on a
her.
brown wig and go like, that's it. Like, I work in publishing.
I'm not sure, but I read today that Camilla Elworthy was the name of the publicist who helped her set up this fake job. And she was actually invited onto set and made to be an extra in that book launch party scene.
That's so cute.
As a little thank you.
Oh my God, I love that. That's actually really cool. I want to be an extra.
No, I don't know. We'll put us back
They
in
might
time.
make another.
They might. Well,
They keep doing
it's
it.
done
and
and
they're
then-
all excellent.
I just don't know where they take it after the
Now
most
I don't
recent
know.
one.
The most recent was very set in stone.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I was reading a bunch of behind the scenes Bridget Jones facts in anticipation of the 25th anniversary and was reading about how Hugh Grant says she didn't speak in her real accent until the rap party. And he was like, it's like a weird Texan suddenly appeared at the rap party. And he was like, who is this?
It's so strange because, yes, I know that Renee is American. And yes, I have seen her in a million things and interviews where she has an American accent. But forever, she will be Bridget Jones to me and she will be British to me. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think it's one of the best British accents ever done on a film. I'm bold enough to say it. And when I interviewed her on the red carpet in Sydney for the last film, it took me a second.
Yes.
Like I knew she was American. I'm very across that fact. But hearing her speak in her little Texan accent, I was like, okay,
like, this is jarring.
This is really jarring.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. I think also because I haven't watched a lot of her other work, so she's very cemented as English to me. All the British actors on set said that when she came on, she went so highbrow that at the start it was like the Queen's English, like, hello, I'm Bridget. And then she had to really taper it down over the course of filming.
I love that. But also like her Bridget-isms were just so perfect because she'd always just be like, bloody hell. And you're like, oh, classic.
I know, I'm like, how is
But
the
she
most
didn't
British
make
woman?
it sound like a caricature of a British person either. I don't think. I'm not British. I'm not qualified to say. But I think it was pretty solid.
We're just like the most authentically British woman ever was actually American. One of the other things I was reading about a lot was arguably the best scene in the whole movie, which is when Mark and Daniel Cleaver fight.
Oh my God, beautiful.
And it's just two men who don't look like they should be fighting. Apparently it was mostly improvised, not really scripted. The stunt coordinators' choreography felt too stiff, so they went with their own spontaneous brawling. And I thought it was so funny that Colin Firth said there had been an earlier idea to make the fight look sexy. We were going to be buff and our shirts were going to be ripped off. And I looked at myself and said, you're certainly never going to get that type with me. But I was like, it kind of was weirdly
Also, they
sexy.
are both so hot.
They really are.
But they're a certain kind of hot.
Not in a
And I
brawny
get
way.
what they're saying.
Yeah.
And actually, I think going funny and going ridiculous was the correct move because that scene is just one of the best fight scenes in all time. Forget Rocky. Like, that's the one.
That's the one. It's maybe not the whole like buff shredded look they were going for, but it was a proper Englishman brawl.
It was an Englishman's fight.
It really was. It is crazy to think, we looked at Bridget Jones at the time and we were like, this woman, doesn't have it going on, whatever. But she had these two gorgeous men fighting over her.
She had everything happening. So I did speak to Renee Zellweger at the premiere of the last Bridget Jones movie. And I know I already said that, but I'm going to say it again because it was the best thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life.
You should say that daily.
The worst part actually was, I didn't know this at the time, there was a screen inside that everyone was watching of the red carpet as it was happening.
Oh.
So all of my coworkers were in the cinema watching me interview her, and they filmed it. And afterwards, I turn to someone else and I make the most like excited, scared expression of my life and like have a little like moment, and it's like on the big screen and everyone saw it. I have video of it. It's awful.
Well, let's get this to go viral retrospectively.
It just was so cool. But I did have to speak to her about that because it's one of the main things people talk about now with Bridget Jones, right? Like 32, gorgeous, has her own apartment in the middle of London, 2 hot guys fighting over her. She's got a cool job where she's just like on camera talent and she's so successful and like also trendy. I really like her style. So she actually has it all going on in retrospect as we see it now. But yes, at the time that was supposed to be like, oh my God, a single mess of a woman. And what I had to ask her was like, what is her perception of how like Bridget Jones was originally seen and how society has changed its way, if it's changed its way, in the way that it views women who are like single in their 30s and beyond. And this is what she had to say.
There's so many things, you know, and I think in that moment you touched on something really interesting there. I think that was Helen sort of pushing back and making fun of all the noise, you know, as a symptom of that moment where the media was just throwing out this image, you know, here's the paradigm for beauty and success that you're meant to conform to. And Bridget, she subverts that notion, you know? She keeps her diary and her checklist like you're supposed to about how you're measuring up, and you're supposed to do your best to match society's and your family's and your friends' expectations. But ultimately, she triumphs when she's her authentic, messy self, you know? And I think she's inspirational in that respect.
I think she's so right in that, especially for women at the time, there weren't that many characters that they could look to and be like, oh, okay, she's actually, you know, you can, even though she is a bit of a mess, glamorize the life that she has and as a woman who's single in her 30s. And I think that is really important, and it became a real cornerstone in pop culture for that.
Yeah, like, and like she's saying, you weren't meant to see like messy or chaotic women as like a goal. It wasn't as much of a thing. And obviously it started to become more of a thing with like Sex and the City, Bridget Jones, all these characters that we could look up to who were like fun and single and living their best lives. But a cornerstone of all those kinds of films and TV shows was that like everyone else in their lives didn't get them or was different to them. And so like what she's saying is why we love Bridget. She's authentic and she actually is like her best self. She gets the guy, she gets the job when she's just herself.
She also very much became a blueprint for that chaotic single woman character that we've, you know, seen in so many different TV shows. I've become a late fan of Girls. I started watching it when I came to work at Mamamia, and everyone was like, you have to watch it.
You have to watch Girls.
And you do see a lot of Hannah from Girls in Bridget. I mean, she can be a little bit self-absorbed. She's messy. She makes terrible choices. The narrative of the show is very much centered on her inner voice and her personal failures. I mean, I find Bridget a little more easily likable in my opinion, but you can definitely see a bit of a thread running through there.
Yeah, I mean, Bridget definitely more like front-facing, more likable than Hannah Horvath, because Hannah is just the voice of a generation, but also a kooky girl.
Very kooky.
You know, like absolutely self-absorbed and messy. But I do think that Bridget did sort of lead the way for us in those more complex female characters, even though, again, like retrospect has it all going on, but she dipped our little toes into the idea of like an quote unquote like unlikable or messy female character, which we hadn't seen that much of.
And I guess going into this 25th anniversary, what is it, do you think, that makes us all still so obsessed with Bridget as a character, and the fact that we will probably all be rewatching it with our girlfriends?
She's incredibly funny. Like,
she is.
Yes, cringe and ridiculous and says things out of just embarrassment or awkwardness or whatever it may be, but she's so hilarious, but also just so authentically herself and like so lovable. How could you not love that girl?
Yeah, and I also think it makes us nostalgic, not just for this movie, but for rom-coms of that type.
Yes.
Pre-dating app, you know, more whimsy, before we realised how much that flat would cost in London to rent, things like that. So anyway, I'll be looking forward to a rewatch. I know a lot of cinemas are actually doing screenings again because it's the 25th anniversary.
Oh my God,
so,
we have to go.
Yeah, we should go.
I didn't know that was happening. I rewatch it all the time though, so I don't know that feels that special to me.
I haven't rewatched in a while.
What are you doing that's going to make a rewatch feel special?
I think going to the cinema to see an old movie again would make it
really
special.
like that people are doing like 25th screenings. There was Pride and Prejudice last year, and now this. Like, it's kind of nice that cinemas are committing to like bringing back old faves, because I didn't get to see it in the cinema when I was younger.
No, well, something to look forward to. Bridget Jones, I mean, remember it on April 13th, 25 years to the day.